Okay, move out. In Puerto Rico, the men of the National Guard are ready. Change the name. Make it New York, Nebraska, Arkansas, California, Hawaii, or any other state, and it's still a statement of fact. The men of the National Guard form an important part of America's overall defensive strength. Some 400,000 Army Guardsmen and about 80,000 Air Guardsmen are on the job, here in Puerto Rico as elsewhere. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Their role is a unique one, and their tradition a source of justifiable pride. They are professionally trained citizen soldiers and airmen, always prepared on a moment's notice to answer the call. So it is with the famed 28th Infantry Division of the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. The 28th is part of the Selected Army National Guard and Reserve Force, or SRF as it is called. The SRF was formed as a result of the mounting tension in Southeast Asia and is composed of 150,000 Army Guardsmen and reservists, 119,000 of which are Guardsmen. As a matter of fact, all the combat elements of that select force, the 3 infantry divisions, the 6 infantry brigades, an armored cavalry regiment, and other combat support units are National Guard outfits. Through increased manning, more equipment, and accelerated training, these SRF units have given the nation a ready force unequaled in our history. Helicopters are part of the Guard, too. Both the Army and Air National Guard have programs under which qualified young men can train to be pilots. This giant Air National Guard C-97, fighting its way through the fringes of a rampaging tropical storm, has taken off from an Air Force base in the Philippines. Its crewmen are far from their homes in Tennessee. They are citizen airmen, but their destination is Vietnam. The watery tropical jungle below is the treacherous Mekong Delta in South Vietnam. To this Tennessee Air National Guard crew and to many other Air National Guardsmen, the Mekong has become a familiar sight. So has Saigon, its Tan Son Nhut Airport dead ahead, and those flooded rice paddies hiding the elusive Viet Cong. Over the Mekong, it's not unusual for a crew to find itself the target of a VC barrage of small arms fire. Fortunately, these men from Tennessee were not hit. Tan Son Nhut, a strange name in a faraway place. To many of our nation's men and women of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, Tan Son Nhut serves as an introduction to the war being fought in this corner of Southeast Asia. All this activity is an impressive sight. Reactions to it vary with the individual. Let's listen to this Air Guardsman explain how he felt.
It's hard to explain. You get the feeling you're a part of all this back in the Philippines. When you leave there, you get a real good briefing on the situation in Vietnam. Except when you skirt the edges of a typhoon like we did today. The 5-hour flight in Saigon is fairly routine. We're usually pretty tired because we've flown halfway around the world to deliver this cargo. No matter how tired you are, though, when you get over the Delta, everybody comes alive. I don't suppose there's more aerial activity anywhere than there is in a combat zone. They say this is the busiest airport in the world, and I believe it. You see all kinds of aircraft, some waiting their call to combat, and others returning from their combat missions. Equipment is piled all over the place. As a matter of fact, parking space is so critical that we unload and get right out to make room for others. We're parked by the tower this trip. That's only about 50 yards from a fuel storage area that was hit by a VC mortar attack the other night. We saw some of the planes that had been hit as we taxied in. Makes you sort of sick. Just today, a big force of VC was flushed out of hiding 8 miles from here. We've got men, radar, missiles all over. I wouldn't want to try to infiltrate this place. The Vietnamese help load and unload our airplanes here. They're real friendly people and they do a fine job. We, of course, hope that all these workers are our friends, but I guess you really never know. See that? I've never seen that before. I guess that chopper's bringing it back for repairs. Boy, she really got banged up. For us National Guardsmen, these missions to Vietnam are rewarding experiences. In my book, every guy over here is a patriot in the finest American tradition.
The work of these guardsmen is as widely varied as the needs of the nation's defense structure. And those needs often call for skills which give new importance to the phrase, technicians in uniform. Take this airplane, for instance. It looks like any other C-97. You might describe this one as something round and silver with a voice that can be heard around the world. This is the Oklahoma Air National Guard's Talking Bird. They call it that because it has radio and communications equipment for worldwide operations. This plane remains on 4-hour alert at all times. A crisis anywhere in the world may mean that this crew will be on its way. That was the case during the 1965 crisis in the Dominican Republic. Talking Bird was one of the first planes ordered into Santo Domingo. It has a wide range of versatility. These capable guardsmen can land in a remote area anywhere in the world and relay conversation from a walkie-talkie in a foxhole directly to the Pentagon. This is Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, another trouble area of the world. The Air Guard flies into this outpost in the Caribbean regularly. In the past year, the Air National Guard has taken over a significant part of the aeromedical evacuation flights for the Air Force. Cuba is one of the many offshore locations served by the Guard. Cargo, too, is important to these dedicated, hard-working sailors and Marines. And at this sprawling naval base in the Atlantic, guarding against infiltration is a 24-hour-a-day job. Minefields, barbed wire fences, a no man's land, outposts that remind one of Korea. That's what it's like here. On one side, we have our outposts. On the other, they have theirs. We watch them. They watch us. The seas are not an unfamiliar element to the Army National Guard. These boats in the log-filled waters around Tacoma belong to the Washington Army National Guard. These guardsmen wear the Army green. They may sound as salty as a sailor, but they're all Army. Whether it's on the bridge or on the deck of these floating machine shops, tugs, utility, and landing craft, these guardsmen are expert seamen. Although their mission is primarily one of combat support, their importance in natural disasters makes this outfit a valuable asset to the entire West Coast. Their flotilla is unique, the only one in the National Guard. These sailors in green are shoving off on a landing exercise with other Guard troops. Time and tide make little difference to these seagoing soldiers. Plowing through the frigid and choppy waters of Puget Sound, they observe strict radio silence. The fact that guardsmen serve their community and state as well as their nation makes the Guard unusual in itself. In other words, these men swear allegiance to both state and nation, and thus the National Guard is the only military force immediately available to a governor or a community in the event of a raging tornado, a rampaging flood, a fierce forest fire, or any other civil emergency. That's quite an asset for Americans to have, a sort of bonus they get only with the National Guard. Although the Guard has its responsibility to the state and community, it trains primarily to meet its wartime mission. And in any war, there's always a high priority for linguists, men who can speak foreign languages. They're needed to read enemy documents, interrogate prisoners, and for many other duties. The National Guard is well prepared on this score, too. Here's a group of Utah Army Guardsmen in their foreign language laboratory. They're practicing some of the toughest Oriental dialects. This Guard Linguist Company has capabilities in 18 different languages. It's interesting to note that 94% of the men in this unit have lived in foreign countries. They learned the languages fluently. They became very familiar with the people, with their customs, with the geography of the country, and with the climate. That's on-the-job training of the highest order, and the high caliber of men in this outfit is typical of the individual dedication and determination that is found throughout the National Guard. They're the kind of people you like to associate with. These linguists don't spend all their time in the laboratory by any means. On a weekend, they might be out working closely with an Army Guard Special Forces unit, the proud Green Berets. The Guard has them too. Here's part of the Utah Special Forces outfit getting ready for a night parachute drop in connection with an exercise the following day. They're a rugged-looking bunch, and they're tough too. It's a line of work that demands a pocketful of courage and a heaping dose of physical stamina. The Guard has something else special, too. Those waves skipping across the coral reefs at Puerto Rico are washing directly toward an aggregation known as the Buccaneers. They're special because they make music from 55-gallon oil drums. Take a few of those drums, cut them down, beat them up a little bit, temper them, and you have a steel drum band. And when you have a steel drum band, you have, well, give a listen. Puerto Rico Air Guard fighter pilots make a different kind of music. That music is the thunder and roar of an F-86 jet fighter. Like all the Air Guard's 22 air defense units, they maintain the watch 365 days a year, standing alert just like their compatriots in the active Air Force. In standing alert, these guardsmen are ready to get into the air in just a few minutes. If an unidentified plane approaches, they go up to check it out. So far, they've all been friendly. Were an enemy to show up, however, these planes are armed for battle. These guardsmen are the first line of defense. An Air Guard radar station maintains a 24-hour, year-round vigil of the skies surrounding the island. It's a dreary, lonely job, but it requires professional competence of the highest order. These Hawaiian Army Guardsmen are flying a routine patrol along the beautiful shores of Oahu. In Hawaii, the Army and Air Guard team together to provide the primary defenses for the island. Army Guard Nike Hercules batteries, such as this Hawaiian unit, regularly establish new records for missile firing accuracy and professionalism. These guardsmen carry out their practice firings right from their island stations in Hawaii, a built-in advantage to living in a paradise like this. Guardsmen protecting the key industrial complexes in the continental United States usually go to New Mexico for their practice firings. All these Nike units of the Guard are on round-the-clock alert at all times. Missiles are among the most complex, sophisticated weapons in our nation's defense inventory. The Guard's teamwork and precision timing lend that necessary assurance so comforting to the people who once suffered the indignity of a sneak attack. Supporting the Hawaii Nike Hercules defense is the Hawaii Air National Guard and its F-102 jet interceptors. If an unidentified aircraft approaches these shores, these jet pilots scramble into the wild blue like a surfer takes to Waikiki. The heavy responsibilities given the Guard and the obvious confidence the nation's strategists place on guardsmen is comforting evidence of the Guard's readiness and capability. It's a trained, professional force that can and does do almost anything. These F-105s, for example, belong to the New Jersey Air National Guard. They can carry more bombs than many of what we called our big bombers in World War II. One of the pilots in this flight was Captain Jim Butler. He flew missions over North Vietnam in an active Air Force F-105 outfit a short time back. When he got out of the service, he signed up with the airlines, but he keeps his weekends for these supersonic stallions. He's typical of the combat-tested men of the Guard, and he provides an additional element of up-to-date combat experience which he can share with his fellow guardsmen. How's this for a voice of authority? Those guns spit out 6,000 rounds a minute. With the help of aerial tankers, these fighters can be dispatched to any point in the world in a matter of hours. These jets are active Air Force F-105s, exemplifying, once again, the teamwork that exists between the National Guard and the active military forces. These aerial tankers are a relatively recent addition to the Guard inventory, but they've proved their importance time and time again. In an exercise in 1964, these Guard tankers teamed up with Guard jets and moved to Europe in a mere 9 hours. As a rule, Guardsmen aren't found short of ingenuity. These are some Illinois Army Guard infantrymen from the 33rd Division, teamed up with a tank element of the Wisconsin Army Guard in a recent field exercise. These ground units are requesting assistance from their brother Guardsmen in the air. This request has an unusual ring because the Army tanks are running low on fuel and there's not a drop within miles of this area. Remote from everything except an abandoned airstrip. Are they in trouble? Not with their skyborne gas station around. Perimeter defenses are established while the flyboys rig the refueling nozzles. And in a matter of seconds, the aircraft is supplying the tanks with vital fuel. In addition to these tankers, other tactical air command elements of the Guard include 23 fighter, 12 reconnaissance, and 4 air commando groups, plus many other non-flying units, which play an important role in providing support in radar, communications, electronics, and weather. 9 F-100 tactical fighter and 4 RF-84F tactical reconnaissance units, plus a tactical control group, have been placed in an accelerated training status similar to the program being carried out by the Army Guard SRF units. This bond in the Guard between the Army and the air, and between one state and another, is indicative of the determination that is so prevalent in Guard ranks, from the bottom to the top. Listen to the growl of these Colorado Air National Guard F-100. They're setting out on a mission to support the Army's 5th Division at Fort Carson. This will be a simulated combat exercise, but it sounds like real. The conversations you will hear now are the communications that were established between a forward air controller on the ground, an observation plane in the air, and the pilots of the Air Guard Super Sabres.
81, I have a tally ho on you. We are signaling our position with